Hello, hello. Greetings and salutations. I am Pat626. I host Subculture Shock Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on twitch.tv/DJPat626. I've been doing it for just about 5 years at this point, and one group that's been with me for most of those 5 years is Ashes Fallen. And I am pleased as punch to have them in the virtual studio tonight because, as you've probably been reading from my blog and hearing on my show, I consider them to be part of the future of goth rock. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce tonight James Perry, Michelle Perry, and Jason Shaw of Ashes Fallen. How y'all doing tonight?
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Doing well.
Doing great.
Thanks. Well, thank you all for being here. So, first of all, it's a genuine pleasure. Like, I actually have been playing your music since before it was your music, when it was just James on his own. So, like, this is it's been amazing to watch you all grow and to really see, like I said on Sounds and Shadows today, to see how quickly the star of Ashes Fallen seems to be rising.
Oh, we appreciate that. We have been working hard, and you know, I do think the best is yet to come, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I often start these interviews off with what I like to call the supervillain origin story. And I've got 3 of you tonight, so I get to hear a lot of them. You're making goth rock music, which stands to reason that you also probably listened to it or something similar. So what got you into this music genre to begin with? Even before you started making it, what got each of you into listening to dark alternative music?
Who wants to go first?
Well, I can say that I grew up in New Zealand. Obviously, I have an accent, and that's where I'm from. And I spent most of my teenage years, like most little darklings, sitting in my room listening to The Cure and Echo and the Bunnymen and The Damned, etc. So I've always been into that side of things. Always loved the music. I didn't get into the band, obviously, until I met my husband, James, and moved to America. And he said, hey, let's start a band together. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's mostly his fault.
Yes.
But you pretty much came out of the womb listening to the music, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Apparently I live in the wrong country because I was quite the weirdo for listening to it when I was in school. So
I remember being at high school listening to a lot of music that nobody knew anything about, and subsequently have learned later on in life that a few people were taking notice and have actually gone off and formed music careers on their own just from the list of music that I was listening to. So I think that's pretty amazing. So
shit.
You might not think there's people around you listening to what you're into, but quietly they are.
Yeah, Michelle's relatively new to being a musician, but she's a passionate lover of music and art in general.
Well, that's kind of the most important part.
Oh, it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely think that music, art, fashion, politics, it all goes together and has done for decades up until probably now.
Yeah, and probably still now, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, we hope so. I'm still waiting for the next wave to happen.
So, all right, who's next?
You go next, Jason.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar. I just always have been into that style of music. Yeah, going back to early teenage years.
So what'd you really cut your teeth on, Jason?
Earliest was probably Ministry, Nine Inch Nails.
Nice. So you started
I think a lot of people.
more in the industrial area.
I'm sorry?
More in the industrial side of things.
Yeah, and then quickly moved to goth after that. Sisters of Mercy and Mephisto Waltz, everything.
Yeah, for me it was very similar because was getting into like Nine Inch Nails and stuff, and then the Crow soundtrack came out, and every Nine Inch Nails fan discovered Joy Division.
Right.
James?
All right. So I maybe got into this stuff a little later than my bandmates. I'll tell you the story. I was about 15 years old. I was obsessed with Metallica, but then I went to my buddy Mark's house, and
But then you got better.
I got better. So I went to my old friend Mark Sigler's house, and he put on Fascist Jock Itch by Skinny Puppy, and I was just like, oh, what is this? And it was just one of those magic moments that changed life forever. And then from there, I got into, I mean, this was kind of before Nine Inch Nails, but, I got into Ministry. And then it was a little later that I started discovering the goth stuff. Actually, it was probably seeing some local bands like Kill Sister Kill. And then at that time, Switchblade Symphony was a new band, and they were based in San Francisco, and I remember seeing them live and like, wow, this is really cool. So it just kind of grew from there.
I'm incredibly jealous that you got to see Switchblade Symphony as a local act.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I saw them so many times back in the 90s, so they were great.
So we've got someone in chat talking about things that we are going to talk about in a little bit. But I do want to say Cyrus von Nachschelt. Wow, quite the name there.
Cyrus, yes.
Cyrus, so pointing out that Ballad of Mila was killer. And so we are going to talk about that song in a bit.
Thank you, Cyrus.
Yeah. So, all right. So you're starting to... You're into the music. You like the music now. Michelle, we already got from you that you started playing music kind of late in the game when James suggested being in a band together. So Jason, how did you transform from listening to music to starting to play it?
Geez, that goes way back. As far back as I can remember, my older brother was playing guitar. And then when I hit 10, I decided it was time that I kind of followed his footsteps and picked one up for myself. And that led to here.
So were you always kind of playing the music that you were listening to, or like what did you kind of start into?
Like James, it started off with a lot of Metallica in those early years, and then quickly switched off to more electronic and goth music and everything. I think as far as playing stuff, I still stuck with a lot of the metal kind of style. It's just a lot more fun.
That's actually a very common thing that I've noticed this year as I interview specifically a lot of goth guitarists, that a lot of them really got their start playing metal, and that at some point slowly transitioned into just more goth rock. So, because James, if I'm correct, like that's kind of where you were as well.
So, I mean, I've wanted to be a musician ever since I was little, and my first inspirations to do music were my mom and my dad. I'd say my mother was my main inspiration to. When I was little, she played classical guitar, and I just wanted to play the guitar so much. And she told me, not until you're older. And I waited until I was older. But in the meantime, I took piano lessons, and I sang in the little kids choir at church. And then I took up saxophone. And then on my 14th birthday, I got my first guitar. But my dad's kind of a tinkerer, and he got into MIDI sequencing when that was a really new thing. So I'd say my mom was kind of my inspiration to play music. My father was probably the one that led me towards being a producer and a songwriter. And I've been playing in bands since I guess I was probably about 15 when I joined my very first band. I've been in quite a few. Jason, we should probably tell everyone about Spit Kiss.
I love the name already. Let's go.
Yeah, so I was in a few bands over the years, but then I was not really a founding member, but I was in a band called Spit Kiss at the very beginning. They went in over a few styles over the years, but I was in and out of the band a couple of times. But then It was 1998, and their founding guitarist had just left. And I said, you know what? I think I'd like to try being in this band again because I'd filled in for them a year before and had a really good experience. So I came in, and at the same time, they brought in Jason on bass, and that's how we met. And at that time, because the founding guitarist, he was really one of the main driving forces behind the band. I think they were a little lost as to where they wanted to go. So I felt like they kind of jumped on the new metal bandwagon and was doing what everybody else was doing. And I was like, I'm so not into this. I pretty quickly realized that Jason, this guy's into the same stuff I'm into. And so we started, you showed me some music that I wasn't familiar with at the time, like How Job. I didn't really know them yet. And Lycia, who is absolutely one of my favorite bands now. Ooh. And then we're just like, you know what, we should do some stuff together. And then we've ended up being in quite a few bands over the years. We did
I do have to make the joke that, so he gave you a How Job and you've never been able to let him go.
Oh boy. Yes, and then a few years ago, actually, Daniel Meyer came through on tour as architect, and this was when Michelle was still living in New Zealand, and he said, "Hey, we need to get some furniture moved. Why don't you get, we've got this big, strong German at the house. Why don't you just have him help move some furniture out of the garage?" And so, I asked Daniel Meyer to move some furniture, and he did. Well, it's one of those things where, like 20 years before, I would have I can't believe I ever would have known this guy, much less had him help me move furniture.
That's the beauty of me being from a country that doesn't know anybody. Who is he? He's staying in our house? Or can you get him to move that desk for us, please? Good. He's like, but it's Daniel Meyer.
Yeah, well, can Daniel Meyer move furniture?
Yes, he can.
Yeah, there we go.
Very quiet, very nice guy, though. He was working on a remix the whole time, so he just kind of had his headphones on and his laptop. And
while he was moving the furniture?
No, not while he was that would have been very impressive, though.
I was going to say, I have a really wonderful mental picture now.
Oh, boy.
All right, so you and Jason are playing in Spit Kiss, and
right.
and so what's the trajectory? How do we get from there, from kind of fooling around with new metal and then industrial and goth? What's the progression from that to Ashes Fallen?
Well, I left Spit Kiss after a little while, but Jason kept playing with them. But we started a band with an old friend of mine named Ben called Dreams of the Fall, which was basically a goth rock band, a lot sort of more dreary and slow than what Ashes Fallen is doing. And we did that for a little while, and then we decided, let's do something a little heavier. So we did more of an industrial type band called Control Theory. And we did that for a few years. And that was the first time I tried being a front man. And let me tell you, I'm a hell of a lot better at being a front man now than I was then. I was trying way too hard, and it was just awkward on stage, and it was lame.
What year was that?
Let's see. I think we started that band in 2001. And then I guess it was about 2004 when we called it quits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jason, can you confirm that James has become a much better front man?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been great seeing the improvements over the years, and hopefully I'll finally catch up one of these days.
Oh, come on, you're doing great, Jason. We appreciate you being part of this.
That's a great part about being like the guy to the side playing guitar, though, is that the less you move, the more like it shows like the movement of the front man. So like you're allowed to just be the rock, that just like anchors everything down if that's what you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to add, Jason, is it not you being in Control Theory how you met your wife?
No,
not exactly, but she saw one of our videos long before I ever met her. So,
Yeah, but it was through being in Control Theory that she saw you on a video and went,
I like that guy. Who's that?
So you did okay.
Yeah, you did.
She meets you and like, wait, aren't you that hot guy from Control Theory? If that's not how it happened, don't tell me differently, because that I want to keep that fantasy.
Right.
It's okay. It was her fantasy too.
Oh,
Right.
We have
Dreams
fun.
really do come true.
All right. So then,
I should continue the story.
yeah. So no, it's cool. We have fun here.
I've also been in a band called Deathline International.
Oh,
and
never heard of those guys. No idea what you're talking about.
we put out an album earlier this year. I don't even know if we're a thing anymore. I think we're all just kind of busy doing different things, and I'm super proud of them, and I think they're super proud of what I've got going here. I'd love to do music with them again at some point, but I have no idea. But anyway, so I was doing that for a while. Now that's always been a kind of an on and off thing. But then in the late 2000s, I started working on a solo album called Now You're Gone. And it was in the process, while I was in the process of making that album, that I first met Michelle online. And that's really when our artistic collaboration started, because I pretty quickly realized, like I was saying, she's just a real passionate lover of music and art and film and all sorts of things. And so I was like, I was just showing her things that I was working on. And then she decided she was going to be a collaborator on the artwork. And she made this wonderful jacket that I still own that I wore on the back cover.
True story.
You can't see my face because of the nature of the interview, but I was just making these wonderful squee faces over here. Like, oh, it's so sweet. That's so sweet. Also, I really love that you said passionate lover and paused and then said of music and art. That, I don't know if you intended that, but it was beautiful. Well done. So, all right. So I think this is around when I come into play, because I know that I got one of your singles when it was just James Perry.
Right. Well, this was a few years later.
A couple years later, okay.
Yeah, I did my solo album, and then that kind of didn't go anywhere. And then I met and married the wrong woman, and my music career more or less stopped for a few years. But then I gradually kind of found myself again, thanks to this wonderful woman sitting next to me. And then also in 2015, I moved to Sacramento, which was actually it was a perfect thing for me. I pretty much got priced out of the Bay Area, but within a week I was in a band because my friend Adam, who was in Spitkiss with Jason and me, knew of a guy named Erie Locke. He used to be in a band called Luxed, if you know that name. Yeah, so he was doing a band called Dreamin' Red, and they needed a guitar player. And Adam was like, well, you probably need a band. And it was perfect, because even though they weren't really doing goth or industrial, everybody in the band came from that background. So that was definitely part of their sound. And they'd gone for just the more straightforward rock guitars that were just totally wrong. But so the fact that we had that shared vocabulary and background was like, okay, I totally get where you're going with this. So, and I was like, I'm new to this scene, so I just approached it with zero ego. Like, I'm just a hired gun. I'm just gonna play the parts as best I can. And it just really brought my love for doing music back. And so it was not so long after that I started doing solo music again. So then I recorded Unrequited, and then we start heading towards the formation of Ashes Fallen.
And that's yeah. So my memory of this is I play Unrequited once or twice, and I go to play it the third time, and you're like, "Hey, can you list that as Ashes Fallen instead?" And I'm like, okay.
Right.
So how does this go from solo project to all of the sudden Michelle and Jason are in the band?
Well,
I can answer that.
Okay,
all right, let's go.
I was already carrying the gear.
True story. Although she jokes, but it's kind of true too. That she wishes, because she was so good at taking video and pictures, because she's a great photographer. She's got a great visual eye, which is, of course, a big part of what she brings to Ashes Fallen. But you just wish that you could be down there taking pictures of us and taking video, because, you're just so good at it.
Need extra arms.
Right.
Ken Magerman in chat wants to point out that carrying the gear is the most important part of the show.
Of course it is.
But Ken, do you do it in high heels?
Ooh.
He'll probably say yes.
Yeah, actually, I might believe that with Ken, to be fair.
Yes, but Michelle is very sensible. So you often change your boots when we're loading the gear in and out. You've learned to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I did the unrequited single, and I'd been doing at first I was doing solo shows as an acoustic act, and then I realized, okay, this isn't really what I wanted to do. So I was using a laptop and playing with my amp, and eventually I really want to do this with more of a band, and
And into Jason.
Right. I mean, I'd been talking to you, and then I just thought, hey, I think I'd heard that Jason, you were living in Southern California for a while. And then I heard that you had moved back up, and I just thought, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to send Jason an email and see if maybe he'd be interested in playing. And he was, and that was great. And so we did our first show in March of 2019, opening for Alter de Fe. And we basically announced the name of the band that night.
Were you thinking of it while you were in the green room? Like,
I think it was probably the same week that we came up with it.
Yeah.
Michelle was toying with ideas, and you were really thinking about, because particularly with the lyrical content of the first album, the first Ashes Fallen album, a lot of it was about that period of me sort of going down the tubes and then coming back from that. So you were thinking about the rise of the Phoenix again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was the same for me, and probably everybody else in the world has gone through that moment where life is just, and then, you come back, and I kind of feel that way about living in California, just watching everything go down and then come back up again with, wildfires and everything else that's going on. So it all kind of tied in together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I came up, I think I first said Fallen Ashes.
Mm-hmm. And then I was just like, switch it around, Ashes Fallen, done.
Finished.
Yep.
Make a t-shirt. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, we did.
Yes,
we did.
I'm
Right.
wearing it.
Yes. Pat told us that they're wearing our shirt right now.
Oh,
not that we can see Pat, but
You don't
How's
want to
it-
anyway.
By the way.
How's the shirt fit? Very
No,
well.
how's it holding up? Is it, you've had it for a while now?
I've had it for about 2 years. It cracks a little bit, but only in the cool way.
okay, excellent.
Yeah. So
Super comfortable, right? Super comfortable.
super. Yeah. No. Definitely. Like. All right. So we're switching this to a review of Ashes Fallen merch now. I'm not even kidding. If you go back and look at my streams, especially when I first got this shirt, like a third of them I'm wearing this shirt because it's one of the most comfortable band shirts I own.
Yes.
Awesome.
So I don't know what you did there, but you did good.
I sleep in mine because apparently it's not so cool to wear your own t-shirts.
Unless you're Iron Maiden.
Unless
And actually, Precious Ken Magerman pointing out in chat that he actually appreciates that I openly rock the shirt of the band I'm interviewing, and I have to. Like, I'm a fan bee. I support, because that's the thing. Like, when I say that I'm thrilled to be interviewing an act, I mean it, because you guys. I want to touch on I want to get back to Jason and his involvement in the band, but I do want to say real quick that watching you grow from the first album to then a fleeting memory out of a fading dream, like the change was astronomical. And we're going to get to that album in a minute, but Jason, I did want to ask you, since we were just finishing up the origin story of the band, you've played in other bands, of course, but also in another band with James before. How is this different?
The music is much better. It's also a lot different. I think being a bit older this time around, I just have it's just kind of different playing live in front of people, I guess, with this much more life experience.
Would you say so? Like, I know that for the most part, James, you're writing most of the lyrics. How does the music writing happen in the band? Like, is it everybody throwing stuff at the wall, or does one person bring something and everyone builds on it? How does this happen?
I write the majority of the music. On the last album, Jason brought in a riff that became the basis for Bear Witness. And then you brought in this gorgeous guitar thing that became almost all of the fifth song on the album, which was Human Condition is Terminal. And I just thought that was just a great way to show, because Jason is a much better fingerstyle guitarist than I am. And he just comes up with things that I would never think of. And I thought, let's have a song that just really showcases that.
The phrasing of this interview is amazing. Jason's just better at fingering, so.
That's just where your mind is at, my friend.
That's where my mind is always at. We do have another question from Cyrus. Do you guys have or plan to have an Ashes Fallen band tank top?
Oh, I think you've asked about that before, Cyrus, and I am planning on new merch some the 2023, so I will definitely bear that in mind.
Yes, you have asked that before.
But you'll have to tell us what size you are, because I know you kind of, like...
I believe Cyrus hits the gym a bit.
Yep. All right. So we need beefy tank top.
Yes.
Beefy.
So let's talk about because this was an album that was one of my most listened to for 2021. And actually one of the, back when I had the short-lived Professional Fan BC series, one of the ones that I really got into and dissected. I feel like there was a big change that happened on your second album, because you talked about the first one being mostly about like a personal progression of a personal progression for all of you, really, from one stage of life to another, and that's kind of where the name Ashes Fallen comes from. So while there's still some personal songs on the second album, there is a whole lot of political influence, especially in the first half. Like the first half of that album is just very world conscious and very now. What changed? What caused you all to focus on that?
2020.
Yeah, the world. I was just like, how can I not react to what's happening right now?
Well, but that's the thing, is that there are a lot of people that didn't. Yeah,
I know,
sure, people made songs about COVID, but you didn't stop there. Because like, okay, you've got your COVID song in there, mostly talking about how are we ever going to get back to business as usual, but also just really nailed in on political revolution and on oppression and on our own contribution to our own oppression.
Yeah. Well, where we were living in 2020 in Sacramento, I think had a lot to do with it too, because the house we were living in was just so close to the center of everything that was happening in 2020. There was the BLM, protests were going on. We had the National Guard came into town. We were driving through police in their riot gear that were firing off, tear gas at people. When we had helicopters flying overhead, we had, COVID was going on at the same time. James's mother had actually become quite ill and unfortunately terminal with cancer.
My condolences.
We just had so much stuff going on.
Yeah, we lived just down the street from the I don't know if you quite call it the police station, but like the public safety center of Sacramento. So there was one time where literally the protests were just marching down the street, not our street, but the next street over. And we were right in the flight path from where the news and police helicopters would fly to head to downtown whenever there was any sort of riot or demonstration or anything. And again, it felt wrong not to talk about it. And I mean, what am I going to do? Keep whining about long past relationships, or sing about something that's relevant?
Yeah. And also the amount of, the increase in homelessness that we saw in Sacramento from the time that you'd moved there. And then I arrived not long after, and we thought, oh, Sacramento, it's just so amazing. And then all of a sudden it just almost became apocalyptic.
Mhm.
And the amount of homeless people that we saw, and we had a personal experience actually trying to help somebody in a really bad situation as well, and it was just like, yeah, how can we not talk about this?
Mhm.
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing, because there's a lot of artists and fans out there that believe that you should leave politics out of art,
Mhm.
especially music, because a lot of people see it as just entertainment.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean, I there's a place for that, sure. I don't think. I mean, I think there's extremists on both sides. I don't think that all art has to be about nothing but politics, but I certainly don't want to steer away from that. And if some people might not like us because of the stands that we take and that we sing about what we sing about, but whatever, we're gonna do what we want to do, and that's part of our lives and part of who we are as people. So we're gonna express it, and yeah.
Yeah, you can't tell Rage Against the Machine not to do it, or people complain about Pearl Jam. Oh, don't be so political.
Yeah. Have you read the lyrics?
Yeah, right.
You're listening to. Come on.
Ken Magerman again in the comments pointing out that this is what Joe Strummer trained us for.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I mean, okay, back when I was 14, 15, listening to Metallica, I was also listening to a lot of the Dead Kennedys and Ministry. So, and they were all super political. And actually, the night of one of our last show, I saw that D.H. Peligro of the Dead Kennedys had passed away. And that, I was thinking just about how, the Dead Kennedys taught me that music could be funny, cynical, witty, topical, political, and still just kick all of the ass. And it was, very inspirational to my future career.
So, kind of focusing, I've been focusing a lot on the lyrics, but let's also talk about the musical evolution of this second album, especially because I do feel like your first album was a bit more focusing on the metal roots, which makes sense because that's, where you and Jason both kind of got your start.
Right.
So what kind of caused you to go, because if you listen to especially tracks like Vampira, the Ballad of Mila, that is some classic death rock there. So what caused that to happen? And I want to get Jason back on this too, because Jason, we were talking about how Human Condition is Terminal, that you kind of brought the riff for that out there, and that is very much like a blend of like low tempo metal with some more of the like quiet goth rock songs of like the Sisters of Mercy, like almost like 1959 if played on guitar.
Okay, yeah, I can hear that.
So like, what was that a conscious choice on your part, Jason, or was it just like you all just started jamming on stuff and it went that way?
Actually, that song in particular is kind of strange because I had like 4 or 5 different styles that I was playing around with before finally settling kind of on that version, essentially. So I kind of experimented a lot with different directions with that one in particular.
So what? Sometimes the song just sounds right, but since you are on the Pat Thinks Too Much show now, which is absolutely what this is called, Subculture Talk just is easier to say. So,
Right.
like, I feel like that's not a type of song we get on albums a lot anymore. Even if we've got like the lower tempo, quieter songs, they're usually more in the style of like ballads, and that's not what we got in Human Condition is Terminal. Instead, it was just very quiet, but also foreboding.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to pick your brain there of ultimately why did you settle on that? did you know about the lyrics beforehand, or did the music start that song?
I think the music started that song. It was over at James.
Yeah, that's correct. I did not. Sometimes I do lyrics first. Sometimes it all happens together. But that one was definitely, I wrote the lyrics later and just thought about what I wanted to say. And we were just talking about this the other day. And you listen to what a lot of bands do these days. And I don't mean this as a criticism necessarily, but there's a lot of artists these days where you kind of know what you're going to get. Like all the songs on the album are pretty much going to be the same tempo. And I mean, I think as Ashes Fallen, we've got a pretty unified sound. And yes, we definitely evolved from that first album that was more metal. And honestly, a lot of those songs were James Perry solo songs that we adapted into Ashes Fallen tunes. We did that album very quickly. But you listen to like that Shriekback album that you put on a lot. There's some more rocking songs, and there's some very down tempo where there's minimal percussion and it's just very soft. And we really like that variety. And I think about we've also been talking too about just the short attention spans of everything. And I mean, yeah, we're going to do singles, and sometimes I put a brief video clip up, but we're a band that's probably going to continue to do albums. And I'm sure we're going to talk about our upcoming single shortly. That's our longest track to date. It's 6 minutes, and that's not what you do in the Spotify era. And I don't care.
So I do want to talk about the most recent single, but I would be remiss in mentioning all this if I didn't talk about what I think was the biggest breakaway hit on your previous album, and also something that I've noticed that especially Michelle has changed the trajectory of your life.
Oh, of course.
And that is
an extreme understatement.
Yeah, and that is
of hers too.
That is Vampira Ballad of Mila. Now, I will even state, for those of you that have not seen the professional Fanby video on this, I am actually one of those weird goths that solely got into the music and am not very familiar with the movie scene. So I had no idea who the fuck Vampira was until that song. And so when I saw the title, I originally thought that it was just like a song about a vampire girl. And so listening to it, it was like the third listen when I was listening to the lyrics where I was suddenly like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? So
my job is done.
Yes, absolutely. Like you turned me into a Mila Numi fan. Well done.
Excellent.
So, but I guess the question is, where the hell did this come from? Like, who even suggested, hey, let's write a tribute to Mila Numi?
That was Michelle. That was all Michelle's idea.
I don't even know how that came about. I mean, I don't know, but I wanted to write this song, and I knew how it sounded in my head. I don't write music. James writes the music, and it just happened together. And I had to give him the whole story of Mila Numi, Vampira, and her life and everything.
Yeah, I didn't know nearly as much as you did then, let alone what you know now.
Yeah, and so we were kind of writing out her story and what have you. I've always got this thing for people that are the originators of anything, but they never get anywhere in life. And then somebody else comes along, takes it over, becomes famous, makes lots of money, and it's just an injustice. And especially in her life too.
And actually that really fits in with the rest of the album, because a lot of the album is about injustice in one way or another.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've that was more or less by design. But and we've had conversations ourselves about how that song, it's not about social injustice, but it's still about injustice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is absolutely the most anti-capitalist song on the album.
Right.
I will be really honest. I was a little bit worried because it's so different from everything else that we did. And I didn't want people to hear it and then expect that the rest of our music was going to be in that sort of style, because it was it is a lot different from everything else we've done. So, but I think of it as the gateway drug to Ashes Fallen.
Right.
I would agree with that, because bringing the other two music nerds back into this,
Right.
is that I think that's the advantage that you have from people that have been working together for so long and spent decades crafting their own sound is that I'm really glad that you were able to contribute so much to that one, but it also proves that you three as a band are now getting to the point where no matter who starts the ball rolling, the rest of you can then bring it together to make it fit with the rest of your music.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that song really honestly had kind of a difficult birth. We went through a few iterations of the music before we finally settled on something we liked. I think just one day I was in my studio just playing some guitar riff, and you're like, and then you said, "Oh, is that going to be Vampire?" I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about that, but all right. And like she said, she doesn't really write music, but she gave me a pretty good idea of the tempo and the feel. Kind of wanted that early rock and roll sound because that's when the Vampire show was happening, and
1950s,
right? And she met Elvis when he was
not me.
No, Mila met Elvis when he was on the rise in Las Vegas, and we kind of wanted the song to have that upbeat feel, even though it's a song about kind of a dark thing, but we wanted the song to have some energy. And
I keep thinking. Wait for it. I keep thinking about Rock Lobster by B-52.
Yes, I do too.
James, that's the kind of vibe that I want for the song, that kind of din.
All right,
anyway.
so I'm glad that you said that because I have had like a Rock Lobster Vampira mashup in my head for a year, and I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that was definitely what was going on in my head at the time. But I mean, James is so good at just like taking everything that I think of or my ideas or whatever, and he just puts it together, and it's great.
Right, and one thing that you've pointed out recently is that there are some of our songs where, I was really the lyricist, but there's things in there that very clearly are either phrases that you've said or just things that come out of the conversations that we just have living together.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, it's a good thing you're in the band then.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Otherwise, you could be suing for song rights.
and honestly, a lot of Michelle's role in the band is A, quality control, and B, kind of keeping us on track. Because I could probably do metal if I felt like it, but I think you're kind of good at saying, that's not quite Ashes Fallen. But at the same time, you're the one that's always pushing me to do a lot of get a little flashy on the guitar, not dial.
No, that's Ken's fault. That's the sinister guitar lord.
Yes.
So actually, speaking of that, Ken is waiting for his sinister guitar lord tank top.
Oh
Yes.
yes. With a picture of James.
Yep.
Pulling one of his poses.
All right, so we've touched on a lot of this older the now we can say older music because you've got newer stuff. So this year, New Normal comes out, and if anything, that is like a perfect sequel to a lot of the political music on your most recent album, because it is just a recognition of, okay, all this stuff that we were saying, this is as bad as it's ever gotten. New Normal is like, oh shit, I guess this is just how our life is now.
Yeah. And just thinking about the cover artwork, and Michelle and I were talking about what it should be, and you had the brilliant idea to the cover is almost the same cover as our We Belong Nowhere single from 2020, and we had put the numbers 2020 above us, and you just thought, let's just cross it out and put 2021, 2022, because we're dealing with so many of the same things, and so many of them have just gotten worse.
Yeah. Well, everyone keeps saying, when's it going to go back to normal? And it's like, well, this is the new normal.
Well, A,
this is how it is.
The new normal. B, is that even what we should be doing? Should we be going back to, being on this path towards environmental ruin and everything that we're, very clearly humanity is just on a path to self-destruction, because we just can't get off of fossil fuels and we can't get off of capitalism, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah, it is what it is, right?
Well, and I think that's the thing that I like about that track is it really points out that like the normal that we used to have is what got us here in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Pat, I'm so, especially with your professional fan view review, I just so appreciate that you just dig so much into the meaning and the lyrics. I mean, there are reviews and reviewers that just talk about the sound and the vocal performance and all that. I mean, that's great. That's obviously a huge part of it. But I mean, we're a band with something to say. And it just blew my mind how much you dug into that last album, and we're picking up on things, and everything you said was pretty much right on as far as what we had intended, and so that just really meant the world to us.
And New Normal made Top of the Shock for September for the same reason, which for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, pat626.com, I now list my top 5 favorite songs of the month, and Ashes Fallen was in there for September, and really what you guys need then is you need more English majors to write reviews about yourself. Because that's all it is. That's all it is. Like, I may not teach English anymore, but I'm still an English teacher at heart.
And I think I told you, I was an English major too.
I can tell.
I was one of those kids who was in my bedroom as a teenager listening to music with the lyric sheet.
Yes. I've
reading the lyrics, going, what are they talking about? Oh my God.
No, I have talked about this before, whereas as much as I love digital music, I love being able to go to Bandcamp and get a bunch of albums and put them on a thumb drive and have just hours of music to listen to in my car. And I love how easy it is to get a handle on things. I wish that streaming platforms paid artists more, but I do like the ability to just discover new music through streams and Mixcloud, discovering new DJ spinning stuff. But goddamn, do I miss liner notes. I miss having that booklet in my hand and looking at the artwork and reading along with the lyrics. In fact, I'm very thankful that Ashes Fallen puts most of your lyrics on your Bandcamp, because that's totally what I do. I listen to your music, reading the lyrics, going, all right, So.
Thank you.
Yeah, that really means a lot. And it doesn't interest me to be a band that sings about nothing, and I like doing a lot of my own lyrics. And ever since I started doing music, I always wanted to write my own material. That was always more interesting to me than just playing Metallica songs or whatever. I wanted to do my own stuff. And yeah, you've done some great lyrical contributions, Michelle, I think we've got a lot of shared brain between the two of us, but it's definitely easier to sing something where it's coming from me,
So that then leads us to a song that if you don't listen to Subculture Shock, you haven't heard yet. And that is the new single. So let's talk a little bit about that one that is going to be released sometime in the future once artwork and etc. is ready to roll.
Yeah, we had planned to do it tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is a very momentous day for Michelle and me, because November 11th, 2015, I flew to New Zealand, unbeknownst to her, with a ring in my pocket and proposed marriage. And November 11th, 2017 was when we got on the plane to move you over to America. So that I was like, well, the song is for her, and the song is about it's not a topical political song, but it is, because it's about everything's falling to pieces, but we are standing together, and we just have to be together and rely on each other, because things are looking pretty grim. But hand in hand on Judgment Day, a judgment day at the end of all things.
So I do have to ask Jason, what's it like being in a band with a couple of lovebirds like that? Do you ever just look at them and want to vomit?
No, it's not so bad, I guess. It's not when I'm around.
He's heard us fight.
Oh yeah, of course.
James and I, it's not all sweetness and roses. We have
some
moments.
Some really knockdown, drag out brawls.
Well, not quite.
Nah.
Yeah, you've only broken one bottle over his head.
Oh, can't do it. Can't hide
Right.
scars. Never the face, all right?
Never the face. Never the face. Okay.
Right.
So, I would be remiss though if we only focused on the lyrics of the new ones. The
Yep.
thing that I noticed, especially about the end of all things, is I feel like is even though it is still kind of a medium to high energy song, the thing that I've noticed about going from, I mentioned how your first album to your second album went from metal to more goth rock, and I'm noticing that while New Normal was still very high energy rock, especially with the breakdowns, that at the end of all things almost feels more like new wave post-punk. And so I do wonder, is it just that as you mentioned in the beginning, just trying to do a bunch of different sounds, or is this the direction that Ash Has Fallen is going?
Well, I mean, we the three of us have been getting together to. I've been working on some even newer demos, and we've talked about some of those. So, what do you think? Where do you think the sound is going?
Well, I mean, I definitely think with James, it's he comes up with the sound and then the lyrics, but then the lyrics and the sound go together. So at the end of all things, it is a little bit more sort of doom sounding.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the correct term to use, but it is like at the end of all things, it's not supposed to be happy or poppy or upbeat. Right. So yeah, I think the subject matter that we touch on depends on what the sound is, vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're really tied into a specific sound, although he did write a song recently that I think Jason and I looked at each other, it was almost metal.
No, it's very metal.
It's okay, it's very metal, and we were both like,
But that just seemed like that's what that song wanted to be, and I don't know if we'll adapt it or not have it be an Ash Has Fallen tune. I don't know.
Yeah, but Jason and I tend to agree a lot when it comes to Ash Has Fallen music.
So
go ahead.
I don't think
we disagreed.
So along those lines, then. Jason, I'll pose you the same question. Where do you think Ash Has Fallen's sound is going for the third album?
That's hard to say. I mean, with the songs that I've heard that we've recorded so far, and the ones, the demos, I'm not really sure how to describe it, but more of the same, but better, and kind of,
I agree.
Incorporating a lot. I don't know.
I mean, there's a few specific things that I've been thinking about and that I think we're doing. I mean, for you guitar nerds, the first album it was almost entirely my Les Paul.
Okay.
The second album was almost entirely my Stratocaster. This one, I'm doing everything on my Gretsch so far. And also, I mean, we did make a kind of deliberate decision to be a little more stripped down on the second album and, dial down some of the metal. It's still there, but definitely more consistent grooves. I think we're still doing that on the third album, but I also made a very deliberate decision to dial down my tendency to be kind of epic and over the top, and I'm not doing that this time. We all kind of agreed on that. I mean, I'm not. I do sometimes have a tendency to just throw in everything at once, and I'm not doing that anymore because it just turns into a mess. And I like, I want, when Michelle's playing the keyboard, I want it to be heard. I want Jason's guitar to be heard. I want my guitar to be heard. I want her voice and my voice. Everything's got to have its place. So you can't have everything happening all at once. But I am kind of going for a little bigger sound with some strings and choirs and bells and lots of reverb and the big beat and everything.
Well, and that's actually something for those of you that haven't heard At the End of All Things before, that's actually what's playing behind this conversation right now. And so you can tell that there is a lot more focus. There's some silences in this song that don't exist in some of the other music, because during the verses there's a lot more focus on the keys, on the keyboards, and then when the chorus hits in, that's when the guitars really start to come into shine. But even still, the strings are kind of soaring above them, and I think that is a new take for Ashes Fallen. It definitely sounds. You could say that there's some symphonic metal aspects to it, but that's also more of your standard, like, instead of your Batcave style goth rock, which I think was what a lot of your second album was. This more reminds me of like the Sisters of Mercy and then second wave romantic goth that started happening in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jason and I both love that stuff, but if we go back to the very beginning for me, I was raised in a house where there was always classical music playing. And so that's always going to be a big influence in my writing and my arrangements. And again, I kind of dialed that down a bit on album 2, but this time, yeah, we're going to do a little bit more.
I'm here for it.
and also for myself, I mean, I'm a little bit more comfortable now as a I will say musician.
Yes, you are a musician.
I've always denied being a musician because I didn't feel as though I deserved to be called that. But
okay, now you have 2 albums under your belt. You're a musician,
right? Yeah. Yeah, her contribution to the band is invaluable. And I mean, and I think about a lot of bands, it's not just about, like, let's get back to Metallica, because why not? People talk about, Metallica would be so great if they had Dave Lombardo on drums, but you know, a band isn't like a sports team where it's just the best at each position. I mean, yeah, Lars isn't the best drummer, but he was so important in the songwriting and the chemistry. I mean, you know, could I find some amazing wizard on the keyboard? Potentially, but we wouldn't have the chemistry and the camaraderie and the creative juju that we have now. It's not just about the musicianship; it's everything. And you bring so much to the table as far as, you know, just the conceptual stuff, the visual stuff. You've grown so much as a player and as a performer. You are just such a confident ass kicker on stage now. I wish I could watch the band.
I think he likes me.
I was gonna say, like, why, if you love her so much, why don't you marry her?
Yeah, well, we've done that.
Yeah,
I could do it again.
Hey, so I found this out by marrying a druid. That for apparently for druids, they don't. It's not a one and done marriage ceremony. You have to re-up like a cell phone subscription every couple of years.
Okay.
So,
Sounds
good. Yeah, so just like every 5 years or so, have another wedding. You're good.
Yeah.
No, we are coming up on our 5-year anniversary.
There we go. Let's go.
Well, in fairness, we didn't have an actual wedding. We got married at City Hall in San Francisco because I was on a 90-day visa.
Yeah, the K1 visa, the fiance visa.
Yeah. So,
Well, so you live in a church now. I think we can
Right?
rectify this.
Yeah, there we go.
oh, well, yeah, this is true.
There we go.
And Jason and Melanie, they got married during COVID, so they've not actually technically had a wedding either.
Double wedding. You can play. You can play your own double wedding. You're welcome. You're welcome.
We were good to go, weren't we, Jason? We were good to go for the wedding. We all had our outfits and everything, and then everything got shut down. So
yeah, it was just shutting down.
Yep.
I think I've solved this problem. You're welcome.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad we had this conversation, Pat.
Yeah.
And
So, go ahead.
that note too, Pat, congratulations on your
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Pat. Congratulations, Jasper.
Yes.
Yeah, he's going to be on in a little bit for the after party. But yeah, I'm actually, another thing you can't see is that the recent addition to Subculture Talk and my other streams is this little Stitch doll that I've got hanging out here, and that was actually a wedding present. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's pretty great. So I did want to go back just a little bit to what you all said about like musician contributions. and chemistry especially. And I think that I can kind of weave it all back to how we started this interview, where all three of you have been incredibly passionate lovers of music long before you were musicians. You basically, like, from an early age, you know, slept, ate, breathed music. And the skills of being a musician can be taught.
Right.
But that passion can't be. And that passion is what is coming through in the music. Whether it is strong rhythm guitar or a wild solo or a string part that might not be complex sometimes, but is absolutely poignant and important when it hits. Like, I feel like that is what is being expressed in the music and lyrics, and that is what is making Ashes Fallen, you know, one of the most genuine goth rock bands out there right now.
That means so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, but that said, here I have. I've basically been giving the whole band a blowjob for the past hour. so now everybody who's catching this and maybe hasn't heard your music yet is going to be asking, okay, well, where the fuck do I find this stuff? So where can I listen to Ashes Fallen music?
Well, you can find us at ashesfallenmusic.bandcamp.com. And of course, we are also on Spotify and Apple Music. We've got some video content on YouTube, including the Vampire: The Ballad of Milo music video, as well as some live streams and some live performances.
Yeah, we want to do more music videos, but there's just not enough hours in the day. But
Ain't that the truth?
got lots of ideas in my head. I just need some
Oh
time.
no, I'm still staring at like the 3 articles I haven't written yet, so I understand.
Mhm.
Life just keeps getting faster and faster, but we're not complaining.
And and that includes you're also on like pretty much every streaming platform, or not streaming, sorry, on every social media platform.
Yep. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. I have created a TikTok. We don't really use it that much. I don't quite get TikTok yet, but it is there. It is there. But yeah, we're probably the most active on Facebook and Instagram at this point. But yeah, I use Twitter as well. Although it'll be interesting to see if Twitter exists in a few weeks.
Thanks, Elon. You know what? I never thought I would fully enjoy watching someone just self-destruct in real time. But
It's amazing. Yeah.
spend so much money to self-own over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, before I cut you all loose, is there anything else that any of you three wanted to add?
I just want to add that in December of this year, Milo Nurmi turns 100 years old.
Ooh.
So I appreciate anybody who views our song on YouTube. More views, push it up the ladder there and celebrate Milo Nurmi.
Let's go.
We'll be heading off down to Hollywood in December to be part of the celebration down there. So that's a bit of an accomplishment for Ashes Fallen. We're now, up there with the Hollywood people because of our song, Vampire: The Ballad of Milo Nurmi. So that's pretty exciting.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, we do have another single coming out soon, At the End of All Things. Date to be determined, but hopefully soon. And we are hard at work on album number 3. We are playing a local show on Sunday, but past that, we probably won't be playing again until maybe March of next year. We definitely want to hit the road more next year than we did this year. This year, we kind of did the West Coast, but we'd like to get a little further from home if we can manage it. Definitely look forward.
You will at least have one person in a show at a show if you will go to Virginia. So 2
Wonderful.
people. Jasper will come with me. So
Okay.
Yep, new music, new merch. I'll make tank tops for Cyrus and whoever else needs new t-shirts. Yeah, we'll got lots coming.
awesome.
Yeah, she's got a great concept for a music video for At the End of All Things, but again, it's just finding the time and finding the locations and all that sort of stuff.
It'll happen.
It'll happen.
All right, so get on that time dilation expansion machine.
All right.
Let's go.
Cloning. I need cloning.
Well, all right. Yeah, that'll work. Definitely no ethical ramifications from that plan. Nope. Nothing.
Oh, I do know is that I don't think I could stand being in the same room as myself. So.
All right. Well, if you're watching live, up next we've got the After Party, a beatmatched mix show where even I don't know what I'm going to play. I'm going to start off. Actually, if you're really curious about the new Ashes Fallen song at the end of all things, I will start with that song, and then create a mix out of that. We'll just see what happens. Also, my new husband Jasper will be on the screen live playing Minecraft, because that will just be an excellent visual to goth rock.
Hey, the video's done already.
There we go. We're good. Hey, I want to remind you, I did do a music video to Stand Your Ground that was just me dancing around in a hat, in a Gur hat.
Oh, right. You did.
So I'm here for my Ashes Fallen music videos, all right? I won't even charge you for them. Now, and of course, if you're watching on YouTube, then you've learned that there is a fantastic music video, Vampira, the Ballad of Mila, that you should go check out right now. Celebrate Mila Nurmi's 100th birthday. Yeah. But for now, all three of you, James, Jason, Michelle, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate this.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, and we'll have to have you again sometime once the third album is out. But for now, I hope you all have a great evening, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Well, I know Pat said that our audio and the music are on the same channel.
Which is
so-
why you're still talking, right?
Right.
Shh.